Hello and welcome, I'm Ken Gowdy from Sax Comprehensive, and in this video we will look at squeaking on the saxophone. Now there are various reasons why you may squeak on the saxophone or where your saxophone is squeaking. It could be due to something faulty happening with your equipment. Maybe you have a faulty reed or a split reed, and when you try to play it causes you to squeak. Or maybe it's down to human error. Maybe your embouchure is not strong enough, or maybe when you're trying to get out that particular altissimo note, you actually bite down on the mouthpiece trying to get that note to come out, and at that particular time it causes you to create a squeak. Now there are various reasons why a particular note or notes on your saxophone might squeak. And probably the best thing for you to do is to get a teacher to look at your saxophone and to look at how you actually play the saxophone, to pinpoint what the problem may be and to give you some solutions on how to stop you from squeaking or to minimize the squeaks. If you can't get a teacher, then probably the next best thing to do is, if you've got a friend who can also play the saxophone, get them to play your saxophone and see if the problems that you face, they also face. What happens to you, does it happen to them? That way you can eliminate whether it's a mechanical problem or whether it's just the way how you play the saxophone. In this particular video, what I intend to do is just go down a list of possible causes for squeaks and some possible solutions. So let's get to it. The first thing that we want to do is to consider the reed. If you're using a cane reed, then make sure that you look at it thoroughly. Make sure that there's no hairline cracks in it. Make sure that there's no chips on the side. Make sure that the tip of the reed is nice and smooth. If there are some chips in it, if there are cracks in it, if there are hairline cracks in it, then the only thing that you can do is just to throw it away and get a new reed. There are some accessories that you can buy, reed trimmers, which it will trim off the tip of the reed, but you might as well just throw it away and get a new one rather than messing about with a trimmer and trying to cut down the reed. If you cut down the top of the reed and trim it, it will make the reed a little bit harder. Maybe that's something that you want, but personally I would just say just get a new reed. So if you do have lots of problems squeaking, change the reed and see if it eliminates these problems. What you want to do is make sure that you are playing with a reed that is the correct strength for your embouchure. You don't want to play on a soft reed because that may cause you to squeak. Also, if you're playing on a cane reed, you want to make sure that it is wet sufficiently to vibrate well. You don't want to play on a dry reed. Also, if you're playing with a new reed, then you want to take some time to break in the reed. Now, some professional musicians have an elaborate routine on breaking in reeds that may last anything between a week and 3 weeks to break in a reed. Some musicians will just take their new reed, play it for 1 minute the first day, 3 minutes the second day, 5 minutes the third day, etc., and gradually break in the reed to get the reed accustomed to the types of forces that will be applied to the reed once you play it fully. If the reed does develop a warpness in the tip, then that's easily solved. You can soak it in water and then store it on a flat surface, and that will even out or flatten the warpness. You can buy some storage devices that will keep the reed at a constant humidity. The reason why it warps is because we soak the reed with our saliva, then we allow it to dry out, then we soak it again and dry it out, and it's this constant cycle of wetting the reed and drying out, wetting and drying out, that causes the tip to warp. Now I have done 2 reviews. One was on the Diodario humidification reed storage system, and the other one was on the Rejuvenate reed storage system, and both these systems would actually store your reed and will keep the reed moist so it doesn't fully dry out, and that way prevent it from warping. The other thing that you can do is maybe not play on a cane reed. Buy a plastic coated reed or buy a synthetic reed like a Leger reed, and that will eliminate some of the problems associated with cane reeds. The next thing to consider is the mouthpiece. You want to play on a mouthpiece that is ideal for your embouchure. It's so easy as beginners to research what our favorite saxophone players use, what mouthpiece they use, what tip opening they use, what reeds they use, and to buy those mouthpieces and those strength reeds and try and play it. But you may be doing a disservice to yourself, because if you're a beginner and you're going to try and play a mouthpiece with a size 8 tip opening and a reed that's say 3.5, then you're going to find that you're going to face a lot of problems and difficulties just trying to get a sound from those reeds and mouthpieces. So make sure that your mouthpiece is ideal for your stage and your development. And whatever mouthpiece that you use, make sure it's of good quality. If there's any chips on the mouthpiece that can cause squeaks, you want to make sure that the table is nice and flat. You want to make sure that the rails are smooth. You're more likely to get squeaks from the reed than the mouthpiece, because most mouthpieces these days are made to a good standard. You're more likely to create squeaks by the way you actually set up your mouthpiece and how you actually put your reed on your mouthpiece. That's probably what's going to cause the most problems. Also, using a metal mouthpiece may be more prone to create squeaks than an ebonite mouthpiece, so that's just something to consider. You want to make sure that the reed is aligned symmetrically on the mouthpiece and not slanted to one side or the other. The reed should be either in line with the tip of the mouthpiece or slightly below the tip of the mouthpiece. Having the reed too high or too low will cause problems. And make sure the ligature is finger tight. The reed should make a good seal with the mouthpiece. If it's not sealing correctly, then that could be a cause of squeaks. One way to test whether it's sealing correctly is to do a sealing test. So basically what you do, you get the bore of the mouthpiece and close it off on the palm of your hands. You suck out the air out of the mouthpiece, and then once you remove it from your mouth and the seal breaks, you will hear a popping sound to show that it had a good seal. So there you hear the pop. So it meant that there's a good seal between this reed and this mouthpiece. Sometimes the pop happens quicker than, and other times there it just took quite some time before it actually popped. The next thing to consider is your embouchure. Now, if you're playing with a hard reed, that may cause you to bite down more firmly on the reed, and if you bite down on the reed, that may cause you to play a higher note or a squeak. Another thing, if you haven't formed your embouchure correctly and your lower teeth are in contact with the actual reed, that will cause a squeak. Your bottom lip should be over your bottom teeth slightly, unless you're using a special form of double lip embouchure, and even in that case your teeth are not in contact with the reed, because if your teeth touches the reed it will cause a squeak. If that is not causing a problem, then maybe it's how much reed you actually have in your mouth. If you push the reed in too far into your mouth and you have more of the reed inside your mouth, that may cause you to squeak. So it's basically finding a balance of where to actually place the reed in your mouth to give a good sounding note. The next thing to consider is the airflow and how you actually produce these notes. If you have tension in your embouchure or in your shoulders or in your throat, that will affect how the note will actually sound. And also the position of your tongue. If you're producing a low note, your tongue is usually in a low, flat position. If you're producing a high note, your tongue is in a high position. Now, if you're producing notes and your tongue is in the wrong position, it may produce a squeak. So playing long tones will give you the opportunity to find out what is the best position for your tongue to be in to produce a nice sounding note, and will also allow you to memorize what position to put your tongue in to get these notes to come out correctly. The next thing that you want to consider is how you make the transition from one note to another. Obviously, when you're moving from one note to another, you're going to be changing different keys, pressing down some keys, opening up other keys. So when you're moving from one note to another and you're pressing down certain keys, make sure that you press down all of the keys around about the same time, so that all of the keys close around about the same time. If a finger or more than one finger closes the tone hole slightly after the others, then the change in pressure in the saxophone may cause a squeak to happen. So try and move your fingers quickly and change the note by pressing down all of the keys around about the same time. Now the last thing to consider is the saxophone itself. Now the saxophone is made from many moving parts. It has lots of screws in there, lots of springs in there, lots of moving parts, which can all become faulty, which will cause maybe a squeak, maybe a honking sound. So one thing that you should get used to is looking over your saxophone, becoming familiar with where the screws are, where the springs are, the height of the screws. That way, if once you're looking over it you see something that's out of place, then obviously you can fix it before it turns into something worse. On my other saxophone, there was a screw right at the top of the octave mechanism that actually worked its way up and actually stopped the octave mechanism from actually moving. And basically when I pressed that octave mechanism, it wasn't moving, and I was pressing it down with some force, thinking, why is this thing working? Why isn't it working? And then I realized that the screw had worked its way up and actually stopped the octave mechanism from working. Obviously on this saxophone that can't happen because the gap between the screw and this moving part is too large. But on my other saxophone the distance was less and it actually stopped it from actually moving, and I could have actually damaged the saxophone. Sometime later I picked my saxophone out of its case, and in the case was the B flat key lying still in the case with the screw, because the screw had worked its way out, which connects the B flat key to the table, had worked its way out, and the whole B flat key was just lying in the case. Luckily I had a small screwdriver and I was able to screw back in the B flat key, because I actually found the screw, was able to screw that in. Also this screw on the octave mechanism, I was able to screw it in and did not need to take it to a repair person. But if you're not very familiar with how your saxophone looks and these things happen, then you're going to have to take it to a repair person, and it will cost you a considerable amount of money to get it fixed. If you do have a pad that's not adjusted correctly or it's faulty, then again you're going to have to take it to the repair person to get it fixed. You can get a leak light where you put the leak light in the saxophone, you close off the keys and the light will actually shine inside of the saxophone, and so if there's any leaks you will actually see the light shining between the gap of the key and the tone hole. But again, even if you did have a leak light and you saw that there were some leaks, there's nothing that you could personally do. You still have to give it in to a repair person to fix, because adjusting the pads or replacing the pads is a professional job. You can't really do it yourself. So hopefully you're able to sort out these squeaks, and hopefully it's not something mechanical whereby you have to give it to a repair person. That's the last thing that you want. Well, hopefully you found this video helpful and informative, gives you some ideas of what are some of the things that could go wrong, some of the things that you should be looking out for that could be possible causes for squeaks. If you did find this video helpful, then obviously give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber, consider subscribing to this channel. And I shall see you in the next video. Stay safe. Bye-bye.